In 1964, a 28-year-old woman by the name of Kitty Genovese was followed, stabbed, and assaulted in Queens, New York outside of her apartment. As she screamed for help, her neighbors did nothing. Despite the incident taking place at 2:30 a.m., it took nearly 2 hours for someone to find Kitty's body laying on the front steps of her apartment and call the authorities. The incident reported by the New York Times would later be titled, "37 Who Saw Murder Didn't Call the Police." Beyond what some refer to as the Bystander Effect, others cited the event as witnesses experiencing apathy. The Oxford Dictionary defines apathy as such, the feeling of not being interested in or enthusiastic about something, or things in general, which fits the bill for those who witnessed the murder and assault of Kitty Genovese. So, you might be thinking, what does this 60-year-old case have to do with Persona 3? Throughout the game, cases of what's known as Apathy Syndrome is spreading throughout the city as we see more and more seemingly lifeless people hanging around known as the Lost. While Apathy Syndrome itself is not formally recognized by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or known as the DSM, this is a real-world mental issue that does exist. Studies have shown a correlation with apathy syndrome to Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease, and really any other neurocognitive disorder, or NCD. It's been found that symptoms last around 4 weeks, with symptoms being, but not limited to, diminished initiative, diminished interest, and/or emotional expression and responsiveness. When observing NPCs with apathy syndrome, it's easy to see the real-world parallels, except for one key detail. Much like the NCDs mentioned, apathy syndrome is heavily concentrated to the elderly population, whereas many victims in-game are younger and middle-aged. When considering how the Persona series likes to use symbolism and concepts from psychologist Carl Jung, we can take a step back and look at apathy syndrome cases in a less literal manner. During the latter half of the 1900s, Japan started observing hikikomoris, a Japanese term to categorize individuals who are socially withdrawn from society, with most being between the ages of 20 and 30 by the early 2000s. It was around this time that hikikomoris would be on the rise, with studies showing that there's a correlation between social isolation and increased in apathy. It's no secret that Persona 3 and beyond heavily stresses the importance of bonds with others through its social link mechanics, with the protagonist of Persona 3 being quite apathetic himself. Although not explicitly shown, it can be inferred that the bonds he builds throughout the game are what gives him a purpose and a will to keep on living. It's here that I want to establish a parallel between apathy syndrome and Persona 3 to depression, isolation, and the act of suicide occurring in Japan. While apathy, depression, and economic hardships are not mutually exclusive, experiencing one of these three can easily cascade into the other two, resulting in death by one's own doing. While the term apathy syndrome is used as a descriptor of the sickness itself, the game refers to the collective group as the Lost. The branding of those who have given up can connect to the aforementioned hikikomori, as they cannot find their place in society. No guidance, no bonds with others, and no hope for the future. The Lost wander the city and grow in numbers as time passes, likely symbolizing the ever-growing disillusionment of society as a whole. But where did it all begin in modern Japan? In the 1980s, the Japanese stock exchange experienced extreme euphoria, only to start crashing down by the end of the decade. Going into the 1990s, Japan saw a sharp uptick in people taking their own lives after financial ruin, with markets only reaching the previous highs of the 80s as of mid-2024. This event began widespread financial uncertainty, leading to depression and apathy, with 1999 hitting a new record at the time for a little over 33,000 people committing suicide in that year alone, with a large number of these victims occurring due to economic reasons such as unemployment. This period has also been referred to by many as Japan's lost decade. Keep in mind, the events of Persona 3 takes place in 2009 to 2010, with the prelude to the story's events taking place 10 years prior, that being the same year of 1999 when the portal was open and shadows came out of Tartarus. Most of the cast were born in the midst of Japan's financial uncertainty, with little reprieve in the economy, with those in high school faced with a harsh reality. Work yourself to death in order to survive? Or just give up? In recent decades, we've seen real-life hikikomoris become NEETs, meaning no employment, education, or training. The youth simply opting out of society, becoming disillusioned and isolated, leading to apathy, and indifference to one's own future, and to the parents that they live with slaving away. For those who feel lost in this world, hunkering down into a confined space seems like the only way to protect oneself from this dog-eat-dog world on the outside. Between these individuals not contributing to society and those who are desperate, an opportunity arises for those only caring about themselves. We see this play out with Tanaka, the Devil Arcana, as he shows no remorse for swindling his clients. People like him are likely the types who profited on the economic collapse we referred to earlier and likely played a part in the aforementioned suicides. Something similar plays out with Nozomi, the Moon Arcana, albeit from someone who's full-on delusion instead of someone narcissistic like Tanaka, but we'll touch on that later. Tanaka appears to have grown up with little hope with economic instability, finding meaning only in the accumulation of wealth with an indifference to who he hurts. Apathy being described as an indifference to the lives of others and your own is increasingly expressed through the forward-facing antagonist of Strega. This group operates and behaves like a modern-day death cult with Takaya at the helm. Through his influence, those who have given up hope start following his teachings, hoping for solace at the end of humanity. They don't care that there are still people who want to live. All they can see is their own desire for an end to their suffering. Strega wants revenge for being experiments of the Kirijo group and don't care who gets hurt in the process, even if it means the end of all living things. It is true that Nyx coming down to Earth is the will of humanity in that moment, but how many people truly wanted this before Takaya's influence? When Chidori begins to reject Takaya's teachings, both Takaya and Jin appear completely indifferent to her death. Despite growing up alongside her, Jin doesn't care, just like the neighbors of Kitty Genovese. Nozomi is also someone who's fallen victim to the likes of a cult preaching about the end of the world with the promise of paradise in the afterlife. We learn that his brother passed away, with promises from the cult being the last bit of hope that he clings to. A promise to reunite with his brother in paradise, a bond he so longingly wants to rekindle. While not in a state of apathy, it is likely that Nozomi would be one of the lost had he not found this corrupt community that's only trying to scam new members out of their money. In a sick way, being recruited into this cult that's trying to suck out whatever money they can from society is what's keeping his sanity, at least for the time being. Whether it's a promise for wealth or a place in the afterlife, those susceptible to apathy will find solace in their delusion that someone of sound mind would not fall for. This may provide a temporary relief to the pain of apathy and depression, but once the truth comes out, victims are left with nothing but despair. Why should I care about anyone else but myself? Why should I try? Through this broken mindset, people become lost in this world. The grim nature of Persona 3 is a simple reflection of the state of Japan, which, if we're being honest, is proliferating through most first world countries. With the rise of social media and the strange effects of a certain sickness from 2020, true bonds between one another are fading. More and more we see crazy online scams, TikTok challenges putting bystanders in harm's way, and an increase in violent killings among one another. And the cherry on top? When people see someone in trouble, what do? They don't help victims. They just start filming for their own self-interest, completely indifferent to the harm being done right in front of them. We as a society are slowly becoming NPCs. We are collectively becoming the lost, waiting for the end of the world to end our pain. But there is still hope. The main cast of Persona 3 exemplifies a strong desire to live and find meaning despite the tragic losses that's fallen upon everyone. In the face of suffering, they look death straight in the face and fight, not because of their indifference to their own lives, but because they believe in a brighter tomorrow. Our protagonist performs the selfless act of giving up his life for humanity to have another chance, because the bonds of those he formed during the 1 year that he had gave him something he's never had before: friendship, love, and hope. If a person who was once broken and alone in the world can find meaning in life through the test of hardships, then maybe, just maybe, the risk of being hurt is worth it to cure our apathy.